Hello, Daniel Crawford here, Bell to Bell, the YouTube show, to review wrestling over the past week. So, what are we going to talk about here on the first day of winter? That's what this episode is, for the first day of winter. The week leading up to TLC was a very eventful week with a lot of great matches, and I'm just going to read to you what I have listed here. So I think the top 5 matches, in no particular order, were as follows. Orton versus The Fiend from TLC last night. I can't say enough about that match. I mean, good God, that was a great match. I mean, the story building up to it was really good. I mean, there's a lot of backstory involving Randy Orton and The Fiend. You know, going back to Randy Orton briefly being in the Wyatt family, him betraying Bray, them fighting at WrestleMania, and then leading up to a matchup where it was kind of a cinematic match. I think it was at Backlash right after WrestleMania, and that may have been WrestleMania 33, I think it was. But yeah, they fought at that WrestleMania. I think it was WrestleMania 33, and then the event right afterward, which I think it was Backlash, they had this match that was kind of a cinematic match, and ultimately at the end of the story, kind of the peak of the story, was Randy Orton torching Bray's childhood home with Sister Abigail in there. So that was an interesting little twist in there, and they brought all that back. They've been making references to it all along ever since The Fiend was introduced. So this match was, they called it a Firefly Inferno match. So it wasn't a traditional Inferno match where the fire is just surrounding the ring. The fire was actually surrounding the kind of the arena, or at least the immediate vicinity around the ring, or near the ring. So the flames were pretty awesome, like how Bray introduced, or The Fiend introduced the flames was awesome, almost like he has the supernatural powers of Undertaker. But we've always known that The Fiend himself is a supernatural character. But in the end, I accurately predicted every single match at TLC, just because of how the story was going. And I was actually kind of surprised that I accurately predicted every match at TLC, because I'm not always able to do so with WWE events. But this one, it made sense. Every match, I thought, like, hit the mark that it was supposed to hit. The whole entire event nailed it. But this match itself really stood out for me. I mean, it was the main event, and it was suitable as the main event, especially with how they ended the match. At first I was like, man, why didn't they make the Roman versus Owens match the main event? But now, after I saw the match, it definitely made sense. Because it looked like a horror movie, with how The Fiend, like, he was lit on fire, was completely engulfed in flames, and then he ran after Randy Orton, so like a horror film. Like, it was awesome. So some people think that this is the end of The Fiend. I don't think so. I think it's kind of like when Jason Voorhees gets killed every single time and he keeps coming back. I think it's the same thing. So keep watching. It's going to be awesome, but I loved it. Second match on this list of the top 5 is Pete Dunne versus Kyle O'Reilly. I thought this match was outstanding. There were a lot of great matches on NXT this past week, but this match to me really stood out. And I can't say enough good things about how well this match was, but either how well this match turned out. I mean, even the main event with Toni Storm and Rhea Ripley was good, but this match was arguably my favorite. I mean, there was a lot of great matches. Like I said on NXT, there was the great tag team match earlier in the night with The Way. You know, they were great. I believe it was The Way versus, I think it was Kushida and Leon Ruff. That match was great too. The main event was great, but this match, Pete Dunne versus Kyle O'Reilly, stood out. Excellent. I mean, they have backstory as well, and it was really enjoyable. So if you haven't seen that match, check it out. Another great match from the week that was also competing with another match was Bianca Belair versus Bayley. There were only 2 matches that got a 10 from me from SmackDown this week. Like, overall, SmackDown was a really good episode this week, but 2 matches stood out. There was the tag team title match with the Street Profits defending against Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode. That was good. However, the match between Bianca and Bayley, it was the last match of the night, so it was kind of sort of the main event, although the main event segment was more about Owens and Roman Reigns. But this match between Bayley and Bianca, I really enjoyed. Now, I figured at a pay-per-view it would be a lot better than what it was, but still, I thought it was good for what it was. So, Bianca lost, but she's not buried, as some idiots like to say online. She's just, she's still got her training wheels on in the main roster in a way, but she's really starting to catch steam in her own right. So she almost became my new star of the week, just for how that performance came out. Number 4 of the top 5 matches, like I said, this is in no particular order, was the last 2 are the 2 TLC matches. I'll just put it that way. First, I'll say Drew McIntyre, AJ Styles, and The Miz cashed in his Money in the Bank to make it a triple threat ladder match. This match was excellent. It kind of started off in a gradual form, as all matches do, but then when it really got going, it picked up like severely, and they didn't look back. Let's put it that way. So these guys made it to where Orton and The Fiend, and this match with Drew, AJ, and The Miz made it to where Raw at least got on the map for the top 5 matches. And Drew McIntyre, AJ Styles, and The Miz, they tore the house down. This was a fantastic match. It was a great way to start out TLC. It's how you knew this was going to be a great pay-per-view. I mean, WWE, for what it's worth, has actually had great pay-per-views all year. I haven't disliked any other pay-per-views this year. Personally, I haven't. So it was a great pay-per-view. Great way to end off the year. And then, of course, obviously, Roman Reigns versus Kevin Owens. This the other TLC match. It was also really good. So much story involved in here. Kevin Owens, battling in a de facto handicap match against both members of Roman's family, Roman and Jey Uso. And it was just great. I mean, like I said, I accurately predicted every match at TLC, but this was a great championship match, just like the world title match. The Raw Tag Team title match with the New Day losing to the Hurt Business was also a great match. Every match, I thought, of the night hit its mark, and I thought it was a great pay-per-view overall. And you'll see my further analysis on TLC here in a moment. Best backstage moment of the week. It was leading up to TLC, Orton luring Bray in a hide-and-seek game. The whole Funhouse was involved in the hide-and-seek, trying to find Orton. And then Bray was lured into seeing this chair that was just like sitting there, a rocking chair. And we all know the story about the rocking chair, as it goes for Bray and the cult and all that in the Funhouse. So Bray sat on the chair, Orton came out of nowhere, attacked him. They fought all the way to the back. You see this box. Orton throws Bray into the box, lights it on fire, and then out of that box comes the Fiend, and the Fiend attacks Orton. This is the last laugh rule. It kind of gave you that notion that Orton could very well win, and he did in a way. And I need to clarify this. Like I said before, Orton beating the Fiend in an Inferno match does not hurt the Fiend. The Fiend still looks vicious, especially with him coming after Orton when he was on fire. Like, all of that, works out perfectly, and it's just like a great story overall. And this was a great way to have them send off to the pay-per-view. A great way to have it go home, if you will. So, the best show of the week. And I'm going to just read my ratings here for it. I forgot to write down on here, but I already know what the best show is. So, Raw, I gave a 9.68 to. I gave AEW a 9.29. NXT a 9.89. With the, as you extend it at 9.891, I'll explain that in a second. SmackDown got a 9.894, and TLC got a 10. So, the best show of the week to me was TLC, obviously. And it's hard for the regular shows of the week to compete with the pay-per-views. And it's just like sometimes pay-per-views will be outshined by a regular event. I mean, that happened, I think, recently. But in this case, I'm going to just read through, Raw, I enjoyed it. It was the middle show. It was a show that kind of felt like, it's good. It's not the best, but it's decent, AEW was, unfortunately, I mentioned this before, it's getting harder and harder for me to enjoy AEW. Like, I'm still giving it 9 something, so it's not below the 9 yet. Hopefully it doesn't get to that point, but I'm wrestling with this thought. Like, as much as I've been watching AEW since Double or Nothing, I missed, All In. I didn't get to watch All In, and I didn't see Omega versus Jericho. And I know that was kind of the beginning of the talks for all of this, was Omega versus Jericho in New Japan. So I didn't get to see that or All In. So the matches that built everything up to the point that we have right now with AEW. But I saw Double or Nothing, and I love Double or Nothing, and I've been watching AEW since. And I've been very critical of it, mostly because it's a new startup. But I've been trying to give it time to grow on me. And if you count from Double or Nothing 2019 up through now, that's over a year and a half that I've been watching the product. So, a little bit over a year and a half. So I've been enjoying it. It's just I've been enjoying it less and less with each, not so much month, but with each quarter of the year as it's gone by. Like I think Brody Lee's injured right now, but the way they've handled certain stories has kind of lost me with it. And this week on Dynamite, last week I enjoyed. I didn't enjoy the Winter is Coming episode of Dynamite as much as a lot of other people did. It kind of fell flat for me in a lot of areas. There were some parts that were cool, and some parts that were great, but overall, it was kind of a letdown for me. And then the last week's episode, I actually really liked. I enjoyed it. This week's episode it felt really flat. It was amazing. It was like probably one of the worst episodes of Dynamite I've seen in a while. So, and I hate saying that because Dynamite is typically pretty good. Their matches usually are great, but I can't emphasize enough how much I care about the women's divisions in wrestling, especially in this modern age. I just don't think there's any excuse for your women's division to not be good. And especially in a company like AEW, they should have the best women's division in the world. They should, but they don't. Far from it. And people can't come up with the excuse that, it's because WWE has all the talent. Okay, come on. AEW has a lot of great, talented women. They just don't know how to write for the women's division. It's the writing, it's the booking. It's also the fact that we never have more than one match for the women's division on Dynamite. And you can tell they don't have confidence in the women's division based on the fact that they never put it in the main event. Never. They never put it in the main event. And that, my friends, is a waste, and it tells you everything you need to know. So AEW needs to do better on this before they lose me as a fan. And I don't want to say that because I like a lot of the characters who are in AEW, a number of the stories I do care about, and that's why I'm still watching. So hopefully, please do better. Moving on, NXT was fantastic this week. I mentioned that earlier. There were so many good spots and matches. You're going to get to see here in a moment other parts that I really enjoyed about it. But it was just great. You saw Karrion Kross return to the ring. That's pretty much one of the biggest things that made me really enjoy this episode. Which you see Karrion Kross is back. Finn Balor is back in the scene. He's going to be returning to the ring at New Year's Evil, their first episode of Dynamite for 2021. Not Dynamite, but first episode of NXT for 2021, excuse me. But just a lot of great things happen on NXT. So that's why it was effectively tied until I did a little bit more math on my ratings. It was effectively tied with SmackDown. And SmackDown was also spectacular. A great way to go home to TLC. Now, Raw and SmackDown, I actually had to watch on Hulu this week because Raw, for some reason, my cable box shut off and the DVR didn't record Raw. It was really annoying. And then SmackDown, I forgot SmackDown was on FS1 this week. But SmackDown, if you took out TLC, SmackDown was the best event of the week. And it edges out NXT by a fraction of a point. Because I gave NXT a 9.891. And I gave SmackDown a 9.894. So SmackDown was barely better than NXT because both shows were just excellent. Very good shows. TLC, obviously, was one more thing about SmackDown. There was a lot of emphasis on the women's division here. Just all the things that make SmackDown great, they emphasized on. And it just was an extra show. It's I can understand more now, more and more with each week, why they had to move The Fiend and certain other superstars over to Raw, because it's SmackDown was getting almost overwhelmingly great. You know what I mean? So, it was, if The Fiend was still on there would just be no denying that SmackDown was the best show of the whole week. It would be something that, it would almost be the only show you look forward to sometimes. So, but TLC, like I keep saying, was excellent. From start to finish, I enjoyed every second of it. I was engaged, and I think you should be too. So if you haven't seen TLC yet, go ahead and watch it because it was an awesome show, period. Okay, so best heel moment of the week. Roman Reigns, I think the best moment of the week for me happened on SmackDown. It was when Roman Reigns ordered Jey Uso to end Kevin Owens on SmackDown. So this whole thing with Roman Reigns being a heel, it's still one of my absolute favorite things going on in wrestling right now. And with all my favorite things going on in WWE, it's part of what is hurting AEW to a degree because I want some of my favorite things happening in wrestling to be happening in AEW, but none of my top 5 matches for this week were on Dynamite this week. And that's part of what hurt Dynamite this week was that their matches were like okay, but they weren't great. They weren't something that stand out, something that you would remember. Their backstage stuff was kind of basic. There were a few backstage things that kind of fell flat for me. So they were just kind of average, to put it that way. But either way, this best heel moment with Roman ordering Jey Uso to end Kevin Owens, kind of send a message to him, warn him about what was coming at the pay-per-view. I don't know, I enjoyed this story. The story with Roman and Jey Uso, I think they're actually going to end up having a match at WrestleMania between the two of them. Some kind of match to, like a lot of people have been speculating that The Rock will be taking on Roman. It almost doesn't make sense now for The Rock to take on Roman, unless The Rock is saving Jey Uso from Roman. But either way, this story between Roman and Jey is far from over. It's just so good. The fire story of the week. So this was kind of this was a hard choice. A close second that almost became my top one, I almost said they were tied, was the Bray Wyatt and Orton storyline. That was a very close second to the best story of the week for me. And you're going to easily predict what story was the best, and that was, once again, Owens and Roman. But, like I said, Bray Wyatt and Orton, it was such a good story that I almost made it, tied with the best. It's just for a number of reasons, Owens and Roman was a little bit better. And it's not so much a knock on Bray or the Fiend character, because I absolutely love that. I loved everything about it. It's just, I absolutely love the horror story approach because I think it makes sense. It's just awesome. The only thing that makes, the Roman and Owens story a little bit better is the realism of it. Now you can believe the realism of Bray and Orton in a horror movie environment. However, in a more real world environment, the Owens and Roman Reigns story is just a little bit better. And because of those stories are the best that they could possibly do, given all the circumstances that we have right now, and given their current conditions, that's why they're the top two. But like I said, for a number of reasons, I almost made Bray Wyatt and Orton tie with the Owens and Roman storyline. But I just had to explain my reasoning behind that. So, great story of the week. I couldn't think of anything else that matched with those two stories. The new star of the week, not so much a new star, because there weren't really any new stars. The only one that came close was on NXT, and that was that Rust guy. I can't remember his first name, but he fought against Ciampa in a really good match, by the way. And that Malcolm Bivens guy, he took Rust under his wing, and I'm pretty sure I'll remember that guy's first name in a while. But for right now, I'll just call him Rust because that was his last name. But he was almost the new star of the week. But the one who made the biggest impact was the returning Karrion Kross. He became the new star, or at least, the star redux. He's being reinvented, or, at least rebirthed in a way. And he's not being so much reimagined. It's just he's being given a second chance. And of course, I still believe that Karrion Kross is a threat. And once you can believe that, and he's become the topic of the week in his own right, I think that earns him the right to become the new star of the week. Best promo of the week is, I think, the collection of all the Karrion Kross videos throughout the course of NXT this week. I was so excited for the return of Karrion Kross that I absolutely enjoyed this match, and it was definitely worth watching. If you don't know anything about Karrion Kross, I invite you to go find a YouTube clip YouTube video with all the clips of Karrion Kross throughout the course of the year. He's amazing. He's amazing at what he does. So definitely enjoyed this, and I'm happy to see Karrion Kross back. So yeah, that's the new star and the best promo both go to Karrion Kross. Favorite commentary moment. So there were a number of favorite commentary moments this week, but the one that really stands out for me happened on NXT. It was with Wade Barrett. Once again, these are all explaining why NXT was such a good show. It was in hard competition with SmackDown. So the favorite commentary moment of the week was from Wade Barrett, and it was after Shotzi Blackheart. I think it was Indy Hartwell used the he was either Indy Hartwell or Candice LeRae, one of the two. I'm pretty sure it was I think it was LeRae using it on Shotzi. Either way, one of them used the trophy that Gargano stole from like a middle school or whatever, quote unquote, and used to celebrate the War Games victory. One of them had used that trophy. I want to say maybe it was Indy Hartwell. Used the trophy and broke it over Shotzi Blackheart, and it helped them. It helped Indy beat Shotzi Blackheart. So, or helped create a disqualification. Either way, it ended the match. I can't remember exactly the scenario because I'm not looking at the piece of paper where I kept the records of it. Just know that was a good match itself. Because, like I said before, Shotzi's great at everything she does. Actually, you know what I think about it? I think now that Shotzi got won via disqualification. But my favorite commentary moment of the week came based on that condition, all those things that happened. And the Way had attacked Shotzi, and one of them was attacking Shotzi Blackheart, and then Wade Barrett made this comment saying about referencing the breaking of the trophy over Shotzi. He said she deserved it after breaking the trophy. It's just the way he said it. It kind of just was kind of snuck in there, but I loved it. It was great. So Wade Barrett, I think, is a hidden treasure on NXT, and I don't know. I've been happy to see him in there and hoping he stays for a long time to come. All right, so as we wrap up here, I want to talk about this week in wrestling history. There were two significant births of wrestlers that happened, and both of them were women's stars. In 1970, as well as in 1990, not on this day, but on December 27th. On 1990, December 27th, you had Zelina Vega was born, and December 27th, 1970, Chyna was born. So that was this week in wrestling history, and that'll be coming up later on in the week, obviously, in 6 days from today. Will be both of their birthdays. And finally, make sure you listen to my podcasts, including Extra Extra, my wrestling podcast, which is sort of an addendum to that, allow me to go more in depth where I have time constraints when it comes to the podcast. But you can listen to that podcast as well as my other podcasts and see my other works through my website, danacrawford.org. So make sure you check all that out. Thank you for watching, and thank you as always for listening. We'll see you next time.